extension ladies, but they were always really mean to me over at the other place. But they have a poinsettia sale, and that will be for the 4-H scholarship. $16 for have red or white. In order to do by November the 22nd, and local delivery will be November the 30th. So if you want poinsettias, that will be the thing for you to do. Our annual meeting is on 4th. Award banquet is that is our week. And it will be a sit down this year, probably.
Yes.
Lunch, yeah, 11:30 to that runs out. Okay. Okay. Good.
Good evening. There's no monthly meeting in December because of the board's meal that he was just talking about. Our next meeting will be January 10th, 2022. Tonight's program, all about seed without stones. Alice has been a master gardener since 1996. She has many hobbies and a lot of interest. And next year, she's going to be the president of Williamson County Master Gardener. So thank you so much, Alice. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Okay, we're going to talk about seeds tonight, and I don't know if you worked in the garden when Teresa was working in our trial garden, but I brought some American Beautyberry plant seed heads. They're in fruit right now, and Teresa made cupcakes out of those. And I didn't know they were edible. I was amazed, and it was kind of like little peppercorns in it was fun. So I put those in there in some zinnias. That's a second flush of zinnias from my seeds that I planted in the spring in that little bowl, and I've got zinnias coming up from those seeds now after I took out the ones I planted in the spring. So Texas A&M AgriLife website advises, now how do I get it?
Oh. You got the thing. There's a. Yep. Oh, there we go.
Hey Wayne, we're not seeing the slides change.
Okay, it's coming just a second here.
Thank you.
I found this on their website, and it says that this plan is the first step in establishing a flourishing home garden. And as you know, as master gardeners and as community people, planning is really important. And some of us just can't wait to get our hands in the soil in the spring, but it is good to plan. You need to select a good location, decide the size of your garden. And where I live, I need to keep the deer out of my garden. So I have certain things in the garden that deer would want, and some things out of the garden that the deer don't care about. And how much of each type of vegetable you want to plant. And sometimes I also overdo that, but I want to make sure I have success.
Okay.
All right. So starting a garden with seeds. Again, planting is true of flowers, vegetables, herbs, roses, trees, grasses, and any horticulture around one's home. Sharing seeds or plants with fellow gardeners is another good way to start a garden. So I hope if anyone wanted some seeds tonight that are out there, you please take them home. Several of us have been gathering them from our own gardens as well as the trial garden. And so we have plenty of seeds for everybody. I also think it's nice to have a wish list of things you'd really like to grow. And sometimes the articles in the newspaper, the American Statesman in particular, they're not really directed to our area, but they'll talk about some kind of like a morning glory or something that we can't even get the seeds from. And I've tried in catalogs, so I think some of those are things that are going to be for the future. But anyway, wish list is always a good idea. And our talks sometime through the year show us plants we might want to try next year. A particular plant sometimes can't be found unless it in a nursery or in catalogs unless you do use seeds. And one of my favorite times of year is when the seed catalogs arrive, November, December, January, and we start getting really excited about our gardens. Planting seeds indoors. There's some of you that really like to plant indoors. I haven't done that in years, but that's a great way to get a jump on the season. So I thought, yes, I thought we'd start on the system in a minute. This lupin was some packets we had in the office that we were given, and I don't think I planted this, and I'm kind of glad I didn't, because if you read on the packaging, it takes 365 days for it to bloom. So that means a whole year from when you plant it. And if you're not paying attention to that part, you're expecting to get color that first year, it's not going to work. But also they have the height, the depth, and the spacing on the seed packets, and that's real important too to have a successful garden, whether it's full sun, or shade, and also the areas of Texas and when to plant. So reading the seed packets is important. Larkspur blooms in 65 days. So that's a lot more successful. And larkspur is kind of an old-timey plant. You used to see that in a lot of little Texas towns. And they reseed real well. I always like to have larkspur in my garden. So you need to collect seeds when they're dry and mature, preferably on the plant. After you clean the seed from the surrounding material and you verify that they're dry, you can store them in a sealed jar. It just needs to be in a cool place. I put a lot of my seeds in the freezer. I feel like if there are any insects in the packaging, it'll kill them. That's kind of why I started putting them in the freezer. But if you do put them in the freezer, you need to take them out and not open the bag or the jar until it's thawed or you get condensation. So this is from Johnny's Selected Seeds website. And this tells you how long all these different seeds, vegetables and plants can be saved. And that's important if you're saving them. I put some arugula out there that I've had for 2 years. I don't think they have arugula up here, but I think it ought to be okay. But I've had it. It was from the 2020 garden, and I put that date on the package. That was again, the best thing is jars in the refrigerator or a cool place. Jane, one of our fellow master gardeners, has a great place in her garden, the little building that she stores all her seeds in. I guess the reason I put them in, again, I put them in the refrigerator and freezer for other reasons, for the insects. And let's see. Oh, also, if you kept them a long time, you need to check for their viability. And you can do that with wet paper towels, and put a few seeds in there and let them see if they sprout before you stick them out in your garden. I don't think I've ever really done that. I've usually gotten anxious and don't have to plant it on the garden. The germination rates and viability declines with age. And the germination time on those seed packets is normal under normal conditions. And viability is the ability to produce a vigorous seed. So you need some bottle seeds that germinate appropriately. So a seed bank, when I volunteered in Houston, in Austin at the Ladybird Johnson Wildfire Center, when it was a rainy day, we would work on their seeds for the seed bank that they had. And they were under a grant until 2020 to save seeds. And apparently their seed bank was one of three biggest in the world. And I don't know what they've done with those now because I don't volunteer there anymore and I did not call them up and ask them. But it's really, seed banks are wonderful. Particularly in California right now where the fires have decimated a lot of the landscape. I'm sure they're relying on seed banks that have saved some of those conifer trees seeds. This is one reason they do that is to preserve the genes that the plant breeders need to increase the yield, disease resistance, drought tolerance, nutritional quality, taste, etc. of the crops. Another is to forestall loss of genetic diversity in a rare or imperiled plant, as I just mentioned, like in California, or in Fast Rock when the fires came through there. In fact, at the Wildfire Center, they planted a lot of conifer trees, and we took care of those in the greenhouses. The interesting thing was, though, when we planted the seeds in the pots and put them in the greenhouses, the cardinals came in and ate the seeds out of the pots. So you could tell because the soil was disturbed, but the cardinals were eating the seeds. Seed banks are considered seed libraries, and I believe Jane Williamson started the seed library in Austin. And I don't see the community lady that comes, she's a master naturalist, but she worked in Houston to prepare seeds for seed banks that were in Houston. And I don't exactly know if that was at U of H, but she's a very interesting lady, and she comes to one of our meetings. Austin, I have not seen this at the Austin Public Library. Maybe some of you have, but on the 6th floor, they have a seed collection that's in their old card catalog floors. And you can check them out, which sounds weird, but you can check out some seeds, and if you don't use them all, you can put them back. I mean, the ones you haven't used, leave them in the sack, return them to the library. Or you can also save some seeds and contribute to their seed collection. And I think that's just wonderful use of the card catalog in a library that doesn't use it anymore. There is also no, I guess that's all about Austin. The Native Plant Society, if you belong to the Native Plant Society or if you just want to come as a visitor, their meetings also, people bring seeds and share seeds at those meetings. And that's a great way to get a variety of native plants that grow in this area. Seeds are shared, and a lot of times the meetings are speaking about the seeds and things. And then I already talked about Wildfire, the Ladybird Johnson Wildfire Center's seed bank. This is the partnership they were in. It was the second item. The initial goal of the Millennium Seed Bank Partnership was to collect and store seeds from 10% of the world's dryland flora by 2010. Their next goal was to save seeds for 25% of the world's plant species. And they were particularly interested in plants from regions at high risk interruption by humans and climate. So I'm sorry that project is over. So our trial gardens is another great way to see how seeds grow. Each year we try out different seeds seasonally, and the public comes with the hands-on in the garden, and they can see how different seeds grow. And they can go through the rose garden and the drought-tolerant garden and pick flowers and plants that they might want to grow in their own garden. Seasonally, we try different tests of planting depths. I believe the potatoes were planted at 3 different depths this year to see which ones did the best. I don't know if we harvested those yet or not, but that was one of the trials. So the basics of seed planting is to choose a container of a peat pot or an individual pot. Use good seed starting soil, either purchased as such with a mixture of perlite and vermiculite potting soil. If you work out at Joss or you go out there to buy some plants, they have great potting soil. Read the seed packet to plant the seeds at correct depth and water in gently to not disturb the planting. Preference is rainwater, of course. Maintain consistent moisture. You need to keep the soil warm in an east-facing window or with specific equipment to do that if you're doing it in your house. When the seedlings emerge, add a weak water-soluble fertilizer in rainwater. And when the seedlings begin to have more leaves and roots and the weather permits, carefully plant the peat pot in the soil, water in well. Yes?
You mentioned who has good potting soil?
Oh, are you a master gardener?
Not yet.
Okay.
On it.
Okay, well, it's just one of the soils they use out there that we can purchase because we volunteer that here. But actually, the mixes in the stores are great. And here's Judy Williams demonstrating her transfer of Coleus seedlings. She and Jim grew them from seed in 4-inch pots. And I'm sorry, they started them in these little tiny trays. And then they moved them to the 4-inch pots. So they're going into the 4-inch pots, and then she's going to move them to the trial garden. This is right before they moved into the. No, I'm sorry, they moved these into their yard. Did you move any of these into the garden? I don't think you did.
No, we use them for the propagation class.
Ah, okay. But that's what you've done before when you've grown things to bring over here. Here's Judy's and Jim's marigold trial. And I just have 2 of the 4 beds here. And we have a lot of the seeds out there. We mixed them all up because we were deadheading and we didn't keep them separate. So you'll just have to see that they're all dwarf marigolds. And then here's her bed in the keyhole garden with the marigolds in the center and the sweet listen and the chives or onions in the middle there. Here's Dale checking on the potato crop, and these were the ones that were planted at different depths.
There we go.
On the deck of shopping.
They're planting parsnips. And then here's the succession from October 31st, 13th of November to the harvest date March. And Judy and Sonia have been planting rows of companion plantings from seed in the trial garden. There's this called the backyard garden. So you can see the different things you can plant in a smaller space as well. And here's some of the cosmos. Judith and Sonia also did a lettuce trial in their garden. And this is the sequence from October 2nd when they put it in. The slugs attacked it right away. They had to treat those. November 31st, they had road cover for low temperatures. And yes, oh, they were under lights in February for spring planting for another crop. They did Hamby beans under frost cover, March 10th. And there they are on March 30th, with the row cover taken off. And there they are on the 18th of May when it's harvest time. Marigold seeds are one of my favorites to collect because they just fall out of the flower almost. It's very easy. It's helpful if you can take the flower head off, but most of those sacks out there just sack a whole flower. And you can just separate them yourself. we had so many of those seeds, it would have been hours and hours and hours of taking them apart. And I think these grow real fast. This is Xenia and Coreopsis seed, and these are both annuals. These are both on their second flush in my vegetable garden. I love coneflowers. I love echinacea. So this is my garden with echinacea, and this was in the spring, but it is still blooming in different spots. So it's been fun to have echinacea. And I just cut those, when they go to seed, I cut the heads off and put them in a sack, shake them up or step on them or de-seed them, and then cut the plant way down to the ground, and they're coming back up. So this is fun. I mean, I think I can. You can see this little seeds, getting ready to fall off that seed head. So here I have bluebonnet seeds is a different kind of dispersal. If you've ever stood in a pasture or a field of bluebonnets when they're warming up and drying, it's really a lot of fun because you hear them just ping, 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 ping all over the place, and the seed head twists, so it's kind of like a helicopter, and it sends them all out in many directions. And I just think it's fun to be in a field where you feel that those seeds popping. Here's the two different poppies. Here's one that was in the herb garden, and I think they have a similar one in the drought tolerant garden. This is one of the poppies I've carried with me from house to house on the left. They have almost identical seeds. In fact, if you gather the seeds at the same time and don't put them in separate containers, you won't know which one it is, unless you're very good at that. The poppy at the bottom right is the corn poppy that is the Georgetown poppy, and it has a much airier, delicate flower. The one at the top is this. I imagine it's an opium poppy, but you can use those poppy seeds out of that as in dressing in cakes. And the seeds can be, you can see the holes at the top. If you've never seen a poppy seed head, the wind blows those seeds out, and it's almost like a rattle. It shakes them out. And the one on the right is much tinier, and they do the same thing. The wind blows these. The stems on the one on the top are much sturdier, so they don't blow quite as much as the ones on the right. But they're both fun, and that's in a bed of yarrow. So it's very easy when these are dry to cut them off and just shake them into a sack. And again, that's when I start putting them in the freezer because of the insects that are around them. You'll always find spiders or something with your seeds. Mountain laurel seed is a different seed. It has a real heavy, tough seed coat. In fact, I don't even know if you can stomp on it and open it. But you can scarify it with a sandpaper or a file. You can also soak it in rainwater. I've seen people that had it near their gutter in a bucket, and they would start sprouting, and then you can plant the sprouts. However, it doesn't move. I find it very difficult to transplant mountain laurel. So I like to plant the seeds where I really want my mountain laurel to grow. It attracts butterflies, hummingbirds, bees. All parts are poisonous to the touch, and I did not know this. I've been touching mountain laurel for years and never knew it was that poisonous. So I guess maybe I'm not allergic to it. I did know that ingestion of the seed would result in headaches, upset stomach, sleepiness, and muscle paralysis. And there is actually down in South Texas, there's a pictograph that has a look of one of these seeds in a cache. I'm sorry, they found them in a cache, like a pot or a basket down near in Big Bend area. And the nausea part of that is probably what the Native Americans used in their ceremonies. Arugula is on the left, and then when it goes to flower on the right, and then the seeds just immediately, pretty much dry within a couple of weeks, and they fall all over the place. They're very easy to collect. Here's Sonia trimming one of the big sunflowers in the trial garden. Pollination and cross-pollination. Pollination is transferring pollen from the male part of the flower to the female part of the flower. This provides fertilization and seed production. It can happen with the wind or an animal while feeding on nectar. Cross-pollination, heterotony, is when the male pollen of one flower is transferred to the female part of another flower. And so that is why sometimes you need a male and a female flower. And a lot of fruit trees are like that. They need a male and a female tree. Cross-pollination is found in both angiosperms, flowering plants, and gymnosperms or cone-bearing plants. It facilitates cross-fertilization and outbreeding. Cross-pollination can aid in adaptations to the environment by creating genetic variability. It also ensures survival of the species. It is vital to some plants where the male pollen sheds prior to the female stigma's maturation or receptivity. Thus, cross-pollination has to occur in these species. As a reminder, the stamen is the pollen-producing part of the flower with a slender filament supporting the anther. Stigma is the sticky part of the pistil where pollen germinates. The ovary is the enlarged portion, basal portion of the pistil where ovules are produced after. And pollinators play vital roles in the development of seeds, obviously. Pollinators include birds, bats, moths, butterflies, bees, and small animals who get nectar and pollen from flowers, trees, and woody shrubs. Pollination of our crops and flowers facilitates reproduction in 90% of the world's flowering plants. They enable seeds to be produced by plants. They carry pollen from one plant to another, enabling them to produce fruit and seeds to continue the cycle. More than 150 of the world's crops depend on pollinators. Texas A&M experts recently said that pollinators were needed badly after our freeze this last February. I don't know about you all, but I planted a whole lot of flower seeds this year, primarily because I started bees this year, and so I needed some more flowers, or I wanted to have more flowers for bees. In the spring of 2021, Michael, the director of gardens at Texas A&M University and professor of landscape and horticulture, suggested the need to help pollinators this year by planting more seeds. Some suggestions were the forage, which we have in the herb garden, marigold and sweet listen, which we also have in the trunk garden, or had in the trunk. All these are flourishing in our garden in 2021. Another fast-growing annual is the sunflower, and butterflies are attracted to flowers like this in the aster family. So here is a male cardinal, and I think the cardinals had a nest in the tree nearby. But he sat on that all day, watching those, protecting that seed bed. So I had fun taking this photograph. Here's an albino hummingbird, black-chinned hummingbird. And this was shot at one of my archaeology friends' houses in Cristobal, Texas. He has a bed and breakfast there, and he calls it the Hummer House because he has a viewing station, and he puts mattress ticking in places for the hummingbirds to get for part of their nest. He just has all kinds of nesting material out there and lots of feeders. So people come from all over to see his hummingbirds, or the hummingbirds that come through there in Cristobal, Texas. If you've ever been to Cristobal, Texas, it's about 6 miles. That's it. Probably bigger now, but not very big. Here's some monarchs on the Greg's Mist, and if you don't have Greg's Mist, it's a delightful plant. Most of these plants, when they keep propagating, and so you can just grab a handful and dig up the roots and plant them somewhere else. I really like Greg's Mist for the butterfly. There's a monarch on the echinacea. And there, I'm trying to remember where the bee is. You can see the bee. I think it's on the left. Down in the flowers. But they were crawling all over this prickly. There's some honeybee, a honeybee going into the sunflowers.
We go.
Here's some more honeybees on the poppy. Okay. Yeah, and then as the ending, there's my last slide of that guy who's having fun. And then I also wanted to show you, if you're not familiar with the bluebonnet forb, you can start looking for that now. I've seen some in my yard already. And then that's one of the that's the big red poppy, the opium poppy. Or I don't know what real name of that poppy is, I'm sorry to say. I just got seeds from someone in my town, that's what they called it. But that's what the forb looks like on the poppy. And the Georgetown poppy, I don't know if you've tried to grow that, but I've seen the first year I tried to grow it from seeds. I think I pulled them all up thinking they were dandelions. So you have to kind of leave some of those weeds in the spring and see what they turn out to be. So that's my show on seeds. Anybody have any questions? Yes.
I have a couple of comments. Someone asked where to get that potting soil.
Yes.
Bright Ideas in Austin, off of Burnett, they will give you, they have potting soil like that, buy in big bags.
Oh, great. Thank you very much. I haven't tried that in here.
Also, your about delphinium, bluebonnet is the delphinium family.
Huh?
And some of those bluebonnet when you plant them, if you look, they're different sizes.
Yes.
And they also have a different thickness of the.
Oh.
If you plant that handful of bluebonnet, only probably about 20% of them come out. What happens is the way they were made, or God created them. Some will bloom 1 year, some will hatch the next year, some will hatch the next year. They will not all hatch the next year.
Because of the seed coat.
Because of the way
Thickness.
it is, and it's my understanding the state of Texas has 5 different varieties of the bluebonnet that they
Six.
depending on what part of the state that you live.
So I don't mean to correct you, but Wayne just said there's 6.
From the Texas Parks and Wildlife. There's 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
What?
I like when you don't get it wrong.
Okay.
He's coming the Aggie one.
So I don't know if you've seen white bluebonnets, but
Yeah.
that's kind of fun and special too. And I've had some of those in my yard. And that's fun.
Alice,
Yes.
I don't know why, but I've got 2 bluebonnets that came up earlier this summer
Mhm.
that are already bloomed.
So I had some bloom in October one time also. I have no idea why. Maybe Jane knows that.
I have the ones bloom year round. I don't know why that.
Okay, there you go.
I have them where I was.
I bet that's why. Yeah. So most of mine probably are coming up where there's no water, the natural water.
Yeah, if you plant them and that little rosette comes out, because I call it rosette.
Yes.
Rosette, and it will come out. But like if you plant them in like October or early October, whatever, and you harvest the seeds, you plant them in October, you'll start getting a little rosette before it gets real cold.
Mhm.
And then they kind of go dormant a little bit. Maybe they develop their root system or whatever. And then those are in the spring. But whenever they're planted naturally, okay, they will come out and germinate and they'll do the little
think that's great. You have a long. I think that's great. Well, thank you very much for coming. And please, if there's still seeds out there and you'd like some seeds, please take some.
Hey Wayne, I think there was some earlier questions that people had in the chat. Could you read those and ask Alice?
I'm sorry?
There were some questions that some folks put in early on in the chat. Would you be able to read those so Alice could answer them? Thank you.
Okay, let's see. Climate change is confusing the bluebonnets. Let's see if I get up here to the front. Can't see the slide. I'm not concerned. Well, that's probably because of the operator. Okay, can you use seeds from seed package past the expiration date listed on the seed packet?
Yeah, you're always proud.
Yeah, you can always try them. So.
Yeah.
You know, if I put 10 seeds down, put the paper towel over, only 2 sprout, you're probably not gonna get a lot of seeds, but if you get 8 out of 10, then chances are there's a lot.
Someone says there's also a seed library at the Leander Library, keeping it Wilco. Let me see what else we got here. I'm gonna repeat the question. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you all for coming tonight. Enjoy it.
Well, it transmits, you know. Yes, no, you absolutely can feel it. And I just sit here with the
That's right. Good to see you. Take care.
What they were